Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. We welcome you to a special session of Mentor Hours. I, Aarti Agarwal, a graduate of National Law University, Bhopal, will be moderating this session along with Ms. Chandrika Lamba, the Business Outreach Executive at Lawyerd. Before we begin, I request all the attendees to please remain on mute and turn off the videos to avoid any disturbance. You can also drop your questions in the chat box below, and Sir will be answering them. Thank you. All right. So today we have with us Advocate Kunal Sinha. Sir is an alumnus of OP Jindal Global University and holds a certificate in Global Business and Law from Tilburg University, Netherlands. Sir has been practicing since 2016 and is a partner at Ahvana Law. He is an energetic and determined professional who helps his clients resolve complex business problems with efficient and transparent solutions. Today, he will be discussing with us more on the legal requirements for starting a business. Over to you, sir.
Hi, everyone. So today's webinar is on the legal requirements for starting a business, is so that the people who want to start a business get acquainted to the legal formalities and regulations. So before you start any business, you should know which legal structure is the correct legal structure for you. Starting with sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship is a very simple individual-run business. It's usually suitable for really small businesses, like your neighborhood grocery store or a small shop in your neighborhood, and it has really low compliances. You just need a Aadhaar card, a PAN card, bank account, and you can start your business. Secondly, is a partnership when two or more people come to start a business together. You need a partnership deed in this sort of business where the profit share of the partners are mentioned. And again, low compliances in this form of structure as well. But there's a major drawback in both sole proprietorship and partnership is that your liability is, you have unlimited liability on yourself. So for instance, your company, if your business gets sued, or let's say, or you have taken a loan which you're not able to repay, the creditors can come after your personal assets. So and your personal assets are not protected in this sort of a business. So let's move to LLP, which is a limited liability partnership. So just like partnership, but the liabilities of the partners here are limited. They are limited up to the contribution made by each of the partners. So in the event something wrong happens, some unfortunate event happens where a company gets sued, at least you would know that your liability is only till a certain amount of money and towards your contribution to the LLP. And your personal assets such as your home, your car, those are safe. And coming to the most popular form of a legal structure, which is a company. So company can be private limited company, one person company, or a public limited company. So the advantage of a company is that when you have this kind of structure, it brings more credibility and it's more reliable. So if tomorrow you want to go to a bank for a loan, the chances of you getting a loan is much higher if you have a company. If you want to raise funds, let's say you go to an angel investor, you can give some shares of your company, or you can sell some shares of your company, raise some funds for your business. So this is a very good structure, and a private limited company needs at least 2 directors, and a one-person company needs 1 director. So everybody who's a sole proprietor should try to form a one-person company in order to protect yourself from unlimited liability. And lastly, there's a cooperative. Cooperative is something which has a more of a community welfare. When you start a cooperative, it's more with the in the nature of community welfare. It's when a group of people, individuals, come together to solve. It's not necessarily for profit. It's also to address the community needs, such as agriculture cooperative or a housing cooperative. And again, this also has limited liabilities. So these are all the legal entity structures. Moving on to the next slide is shop and registration permits and licenses. So shop and establishment license for physical premises. Yes, this is very important. For any shop or any commercial establishment, you need this. This is the shop and establishment license is according with the Shop and Establishment Act, and this is for the welfare of your employees. So, and you need to adhere to the act, and you can only have so for instance, the number of hours the conditions, the safety of your shop and establishment, the safety features are there or not, or whether you provide leaves to your employees, and so on. A PAN number is definitely, you need a PAN number to file your taxes. Service tax, yes, if your company has a turnover of more than 10 lakhs, you have to provide service tax. Employees insurance, yes, it's really advisable to get an employee insurance done, because especially in this time during COVID, uh, an employee insurance is necessary in order to protect your employees. If something happens to them during their course of employment, they fall sick, they get they get this coronavirus or something, you should have an employee insurance to protect them. And so in these times, this is definitely very important. Employees provident fund is if you have more than 20 people in your company, and it's for it's usually for the low wage employees, such as if the employee's wage is 15,000 or less, you need to make an employee provident fund account where you need to where the employee and you both have to deposit around 12% of the monthly income in the employee provident fund account, which is for the benefit of the employee. So once they retire, they can get this sum of money. Moving on, second, yeah, agreements. I think this is the most important part of of running a business, is to have your agreements solid, because if tomorrow any litigation occurs, your agreements will a solid agreement will really come handy. So first of all, compensation. So employment agreements. Okay, so employment agreements, it deals with so when you hire people, you need to specify the notice period if they wanna if you wanna terminate that, if they wanna quit the job, or if you wanna terminate their services, and how what's the salary, how are you gonna compensate them, and also there's also a non-compete clause you may add, which is that so your employee tomorrow doesn't become your competitor. So you need to have those clauses in your employment agreement as well, and all and IP dispute resolution. Okay, so because your employee will be dealing with a lot of confidential information. They will be addressing a lot of intellectual. They will be making intellectual property as well. For example, they'll be writing things. They'll be making softwares and stuff like that. So you need to make sure that they do not steal these and become your competitor in future. So you need to have these clauses rock solid in your agreement. Also, let's come to lease agreement. Lease agreement. Okay, so lease agreement is not to be confused with a rent agreement. Lease agreement is for commercial spaces. While conducting a business, you have to go for a lease agreement. And so term, notice period, security deposit, and termination. Well, these are easy to understand. What I would like to add here is that what I'm dealing with these days in my work is that people who had the force majeure clause uh, are really at an advantageous position in right now, because the force majeure is for a clause says that the parties won't be liable to pay the the lease amount, the rental amount for each month, in case there's something like a act of God which happens. And certainly this pandemic is something uh, which has caused a lot of trouble to a lot of businesses. So people who had this force majeure clause in their lease agreement, so they can really protect, they can really escape from paying the rent during these lockdown times for their premises which they leased. And non-disclosure agreement is again, you need to make that for your employees, as well as when you reach out to investors. It's basically, again, to protect your confidential information. So all that is in the non-disclosure agreement. Also, like for instance, if you're a startup, right, and you want to go to an investor, so and you make them sign a non-disclosure agreement so that they no, but so they don't steal your ideas, and they don't form a similar company, similar business which you wanted to form. So compliance plan. So compliance plan is uh, so these include advertising, marketing, privacy, intellectual property. Okay, so when you're advertising, you need to be very responsible. Your advertisement shouldn't be misleading in any ways, and you should know the product which you are advertising. You should know the laws around it. For example, if you are a tobacco manufacturer, or you're in the business of liquor, you're not allowed to advertise those in India. So you need to know the laws surrounding advertisements. Advertisements are also closely related to intellectual property, so that you have to make sure you do not infringe upon somebody else's intellectual property, such as their trademark. Uh, so here, if you take the example of let's say McDonald's. So you're advertised, and they have a slogan, "I'm loving it." So you need to make sure that your slogan doesn't some way is similar to that, or your logo shouldn't match an existing logo. Your logo shouldn't be similar to M of McDonald's or something like that. So you need to make sure that your advertisements are not infringing upon other companies, and not and you have to be responsible in a way that it's not misleading. You cannot claim something in your advertising which is not true. And okay, so privacy. So privacy is really important these days, because let's say if you're if you have a company like, let's say, Flipkart, or some online retail company you want to form. So you'll be handling data of hundreds and thousands of people, their phone numbers, their addresses, and so on. You need to make sure that you do not, you're responsible with that data. Otherwise, you can get sued under the Information Technology Act for, or you have to make sure that you don't misuse that data. You need to protect their data and their privacy. Moving on, intellectual property rights. So this in itself is a huge topic, but let's say I'll try to cover it in a short way. So let's say patents are basically inventions, like scientific inventions. Those come under patent. Like for example, a new drug which may be formed can be patented. Let's say if a company comes up with a drug for COVID, so they can patent it. This can also, other examples of patent can be, let's say, let's say somebody comes with a driverless car or some sort of technology like that. So those kind of inventions can be patented. Trademarks are simply name, logos, slogans, and so on of your company. So if you want to, so if you choose a brand name for your company, that will be a trademark. And copyright is more of your artistical things comes under a copyright. For example, all your the blogs which you write, the contents of your website, those are all copyrighted. All the artistic work, such as paintings, if you write a book, those things are copyrighted. What's the need? What's the need for this? The need is that, for instance, you have a company A, let's call it A, and that that deals with, let's say, manufacturing of soft drinks or something. So next day, and you have developed a good customer base with it, and people love your product, and you're getting a good revenue out of it. But if tomorrow a competitor comes and they use your exact same name or similar name to your company, and start a clothing business, and that can be misleading, and that your customers might think that is your brand, and they might, and some competitor might use your goodwill for their benefit. So but in order to challenge it, you need to have your trademark registered, right? So if you haven't registered it, then somebody else can steal your all your hard work by copying your name of your company. So that's the need. Registration is simple. You need to fill a form. It can be done online. For patent, it's more technical, so I'm not going to discuss that. But for trademark copyright, it's very simple. You need to go to the registry. You can even do it online. And in case you find somebody who's infringing upon your trademark, you can file a notice of opposition, and then you need to go for the hearing, and if your case is and if your trademark is being infringed, they will take down the person who's trying to pass off using your trademark. So that's for intellectual property. So what more can I add here? Intellectual. So let's say for trademark, you can also I'll give you an example of trademark. Is like the Nike symbol. That's a trademark. The Nike slogan, "Just do it." That's also trademark. So if you have, if you want to create a brand, if you want to expand your business in future, trademarks are really important. So tax, registrations, and exemptions. Okay, so when you start a business, you can register it under a MSME. An MSME registration is for medium, small, micro enterprises. So the advantages of these of registering your business as an MSME is that you get a lot of subsidy in electricity bills, and also if you want to register a patent, you get a subsidy in that. You and also let's say if you want to take a loan, you get a collateral free loan if your company is registered under MSME. Or and if you so anybody whose turnover is less than 250 crores annually can register under a MSME. Also, one another important thing about MSME is that it protects you. Like, for example, you sold something to a buyer, and a buyer hasn't paid you. So if you have registered an MSME, he's liable to pay you within 45 days, or an interest will be levied on him. So that way it protects your business as well. The other thing which you can be registered under is under Startup India for the new for the young businesses. The advantage is that for the first 3 years you don't have to pay uh, taxes. Also, the funds which you will be getting from your investors, those won't be taxed as well. Again, if you want to register a patent, you get a subsidy. So okay, liquidation and winding up. So in the event that your company becomes insolvent, or let's say bankrupt, and you're unable to pay the dues to your creditors, so Uh, so you can go for a voluntary winding up. A voluntary winding up is basically you a board meeting happens and the resolution is passed for winding up. Liquidator is appointed, and the liquidator assesses the your assets and liabilities and how you each of the creditors will be paid back, and then according to the IBC code, that proposition will be sent to the NCLT, and then finally the registrar of companies, the ROC, will strike off your company. And the other winding up through a tribunal happens in the case that one of your creditors, they file a case against you for non-payment or something like that. So your company, so then again the tribunal can pass an order for liquidation, which is then you have to force to liquidate if you're not paying back your creditors. So, and the same procedure happens. The liquidator will be appointed, and he will assess your the liabilities and assets, and come and to decide how the payments will be done. And that's, I think that's it for the webinar.
Thank you so much, Kunal sir, for the insights on today's topic. I request all the participants to kindly fill the form for the attendance. And now you can also drop your questions or query in the chat box. We'll be taking questions one by one. Sir, the first question is from Abhay. So
Okay.
should I? Yeah. So Abhay is asking, does a startup with a relatively small scale of operations and funds need to register for taxation and concept copyright purpose?
Okay. So that those, can you repeat it, please?
Yeah, sure, sir. Does a startup with a relatively small scale of operations and funds need to register for taxation and concept copyright purpose?
Taxation and concept copyright purpose. So from what I understand is that, see, if you're running a business, you need to pay your taxes, right? And I think I'm not able to like fully understand what he's trying to ask here. I think what he's trying to ask is that if startup has limited funds and it wants to,
Um,
or what tax exemptions.
Abhay, are you there with us? Oh yeah, I think uh, he has written some more to this question. Like he has added few points to his question. I'll repeat the question once again. Does a startup with a relatively small scale of operations and funds need to register for taxation and concept copyright purpose? Small scale of business refers to limited operations within district in initial stages.
Hmm. I think I would like to come back to this question, and probably you can
Okay.
write to me, and I'll write him back. I'll write him back. I'll give. He has. Does he have my? Is my number visible on the screen or my email?
Yes, so
Tell it.
yeah,
Please
it
just.
is there in the first slide. We'll be running the first slide of the PPT for
Mm-hmm.
so that they can reach out to
Yeah,
you.
and they can reach out to me personally on this. I'll consult with my other partners and see how I can better understand this question and answer it.
Okay, and would you do you have any issues if he come and ask his own question? Probably that would be easy because in writing, I think there are some we are
Hmm.
not able to understand his question, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next we'll proceed with the next question, sir. For the time being, Mohammed Zunaid is asking how an investor can secure his investment in any startup. Also, what are the safety measures investors should take before investing in any startup?
So as an investor, if you're investing in a startup, you need to do your due diligence, right? You need to you need to make sure that that the that the startup doesn't has any uh, any debts or any liabilities. They have what you need to have a look at their books of account properly, and you need to do your basically your CA will do all the due diligence of their accounts, and so that they're not kind of misleading you in any way before you put your money into their startup. So due diligence is the only thing. Otherwise, there's always a certain amount of risk which an investor takes. So that cannot be avoided. But you need to do your best, the best you can, to
Okay.
avoid any.
Uh, Sir, there were two parts. I think you have answered to both the parts. The first was how can an investor can secure his investment in any startup,
Mm,
securing of investment in startup, and other was safety measures to invest, or maybe safety measures of one person can look beforehand, in investing in any startup.
mm. So he's asking from a point of view of an investor, I believe, right? So
Yeah.
obviously, so when you reach a startup, your first question you ask is the valuation, how much shares, what number of shares you want in the startup, and yeah, there are also other aspects whether. One second.
So he's asking another part to this question, sir. What if ROI is not received? What are the legal actions which I can take?
The legal actions. So if you are an investor and you haven't received a return on your investment, and as an investor you have to you do have that you have that certain risk, and that cannot be avoided as an investor. And before putting a money in a startup, you need to do your due diligence properly, because once it's gone, I think it's the only way you can file a litigation would be if there's some sort of cheating or some sort of misleading information given on behalf of the startup. But I think it's the chances are low, but it depends on a few cases it might be possible. So yeah.
Okay,
And
I
again,
hope.
if he has a certain, like, if he is looking for, if he has actually done something like has invested in a startup, and he's having an issue, he can call me directly, and we can discuss what startup it was and what did they say and things like that.
Okay, I hope, Mohammed, your question is answered by sir. Your question is answered by sir. Sir, Abhay there, I request you to now, you can ask your question.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Sir, my basic question is that during the initial stages, when a business is in the
So
initial
so
stages,
you are a startup, right? Like,
yes, sir, we are planning to initiate a startup within the next few weeks. And
hmm,
so in the first initial stages, do we need to do any sort of registrations?
any registrations? So
Yes, sir, for the taxation, all that.
so you need to see which like the first slide. Did you have a chance to see the first slide which I explained? So you need to choose one of the. You need to you need to form a company first. You need to incorporate a company. Have you done that?
No, sir, not yet, sir.
So you need to do that first, and then you can get registered into a startup India, and then they give you tax benefits there. So the first 3 years you don't have to pay taxes if you're if you're registered in a startup India. The first step is to get your company registered, and then register yourself under startup India, and then you can avail the tax benefits. And if you have any more questions, I'll connect you to my partner. She's a CS, and we'll answer the nitty-gritties of the paperwork which you might need. And you can contact me on my email, or you can WhatsApp me, and I'll get back to you. Is that okay?
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I request Aarti if you can run the first slide of the PPT and you can share
Yeah.
contact details of sir.
Yeah, I'll do that. Just give me a minute.
Okay. Sir, the next question we have is Shruti is asking, what are the legal requirements for running a website?
For running a website.
Yeah.
So, what is the website about? Like, is it just like a blog, or is it,
Sir,
are you selling something, or
e-commerce.
e-commerce? So again, then if you want to run a e-commerce, the most important thing is that you need to have on your website, you need to have terms and conditions written over there. And terms and conditions are there to protect you from any liabilities in future. And also, it's advisable that you also register as a company first, in order to protect yourself from liabilities. And because if you're starting an e-commerce business, what if you get sued by these other giants in e-commerce? You need to protect yourself. So make sure that you are registered and protected before you start something like an e-commerce business. So step one, incorporate a company. Then get your you need to look at end user agreement. You need to have terms and conditions tailored to your business. And it's very important to get all these agreements there on the website, uh, and before you initiate a business. Otherwise, even if you do it just like that, then again, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't advise it.
Okay. So the next question we have is from Akruti. For people who start their business through social media and blogs, what legal requirements should be kept in mind?
Social media and blogs. So again, like, are you acting as a like, what do you call, social media an influencer, or probably selling something on social media? Is she selling? Is he or she selling something again on social media?
I don't know. So
Okay,
this
so
was
I think what that person I think should wants is, I think, is that if they want to start a business and maybe advertise through social media, that's again, uh, there's no problem with that. You can do that. Then you'll be acting as a sole proprietor. Uh, all you need is, if you just start your business just like that and start providing goods and services. The first slide again is, you need to follow that. It applies for all sorts of businesses. There's no exemptions. You need to have a PAN card registered in the company's name. You need to have a company's bank account where you file your taxes and stuff like that. Those are the bare minimum which you have to do. Other than that, if you want to sell your product on Instagram and all, I mean, think you can, or sell your products, or I don't know what she wants to sell. Or if she just wants to, like, I don't know, become a promoter, I think she can. There's no issue with that. But
okay,
the
sir.
basic requirements are the same for it. Doesn't matter what business you want to do. You have to go back to the first slide, which talks about the different legal structures. You need to see which one is the correct one for you. Like I said, limited liability partnership or a company. I think if you are a single person entrepreneur, you don't have a partner, you should go for a one person company. It's very important to get yourself registered as a one person company then, protect yourself from any liabilities which might occur, because you never know, right? Your product. What if somebody files a civil suit for damages for I don't know, using their intellectual property or other things like that. So for first thing first is that you need to get yourself registered as 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 one of these, or and specifically limited liability partnership or a company. So avoid being a sole proprietorship, avoid being a general partnership. Liability is unlimited. You do not want that. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. So, and if you're doing any kind of business, any services, limited liability partnership or a company, just get these thing done, and in order to protect yourself. And there's no other, and you can start your business. And there's no specific legal requirements for, let's say, if you want to do social media business, or just have a small shop in your neighborhood. It's the same thing. Just choose a legal structure. My advice: go for a company. If you're a single person, go for one person company. If you're more than person, go for a private limited company, and then do your business as you see fit, whichever platform. That's totally up to you.
Okay. Should I proceed to next question, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. Sir, the question is from Ankit. I am a student and don't have the financial resources to start a legally registered business. What would you suggest?
But you'll be. What do you want to do, Ankit? What business do you want to do? If your business is, let's say, I mean, it's really like I want to see what all, how risky is the business, right? Before advising you or giving you any suggestions, I can only give suggestions here, and once I talk to you personally, then I can give you a better legal advice. But you say you're short of funds, so that most of the sole proprietors, the reason they are sole proprietors because they lack funds, and they are your, next door kirana store and next door small shops, like those small mobile shops. They are usually sole proprietors, and so they did not register a company. They do not have a lot of high risk thing, and they do not have to take. They don't take huge loans. They do not have plans of you know expansion. So let's say you are a student and you want to start a small business, small scale business. You can be a sole proprietor. It's okay. Do not take any loan. Do not do something which is risky. Do a small time business. But once you want to grow, once you want to expand, then you can slowly, once you have enough funds through your small business, then you can move on to one person company or a private limited company or a LLP, whichever suits your needs. But I wouldn't discourage you to not start a business. Just make sure that you do not take any loans and you do not take any liabilities on yourself, and make sure that you play it very safe at this initial period.
A great advice from your side, sir. The next question, before the question, I request all the participants to fill the form for the attendance, which is provided in the chat box. Thank you. The next question we have is, for starting a business or a startup completely based on website, which will be aimed at providing a platform to connect people with other service providers, for example, urban company. Do we need to register as company in that case too?
So, you want to start your startup is towards
Completely based
is
on
in the is
website.
it, yeah, it's a website. So he's I think what he's trying to say is that his business is similar to Urban Clap, right? Is that what he said? Like service
Okay, I'll
providers.
repeat.
I think he wants to
Should
connect.
I repeat?
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Yeah. Do you want to connect with it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so actually, what I'm planning to do is some sort similar to the urban company.
Urban Clap, right? The one which
Yeah.
provides services.
Yes, sir.
Ah,
So basically,
okay.
the urban clerk is providing you services for all sort of things. Like they are connecting you with service providers.
Hmm.
So what we are planning to do is providing a platform to connect the teachers with the students in a much
Hmm.
simpler form, without bringing any interference from big giants like Vedanta and all those, and without asking the students to pay any big amounts. So
Hmm.
that sort of platform we are aiming to begin. So in that case, also do we need to register as a company?
Yeah, you should. You have partners.
Yes, sir.
You're doing it. You have partners in your company as well, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So your platform is something which you want to do, like something like Byju's, right? In Byju's, right? Those education platform, online education platform, right?
I think
So,
he's
but the
like
issue, so but the
Or
issue with the Baiju's and Vedanta.
you don't want online education. You just want to connect teachers to students, and you do not want to like conduct classes online, right?
So as of now, since the times are hard, so we can conduct the online classes, but later on we can connect students with the teachers offline also.
Hmm.
The main issue with the Baiju's and the Vedantus and all those things are that they are charging FD amounts in lump sum,
Hmm.
and also
You
there is
want
a
to
no.
you want to start your own thing, right?
Yes, sir. We're connecting teachers who are no within the school, like the ex faculties of the school and all that.
Yeah, that's very well, and I think you should go for a company model because you'll be needing funds in the future. You'll be needing loans. You'll be needing investors, and I think your platform is in high. It's very hot right now. It's in high demand. So what you're trying to do. So I think a lot of investors would be interested in investing in this sort of business because right now I'm also my team is also advising a client has which had offline, competitive exam coaching centers. Now they're going online. They're also connecting prospective PSC students uh, to teachers, and there's good chances of you getting an angel investor who want to invest in your idea. And I think this is a great opportunity for you, and you should definitely go for a company model. Otherwise, they won't be able to fund you in future. So go for a company model, in my opinion.
Thank you, sir.
so the next question we have is from Suraj. Difference between LLP and private limited. Is there any liability of startup founders to investors in LLP?
So LLP is basically a, a partnership with limited liability. It's as simple as that. So you and your partner come together to form a business and form an LLP. So your liability is limited to your contribution to the business. And a private limited company is, so company in itself is a legal entity, right? So company, let's say, is uh, it's it it can be, even if you're not, even in future, if even if you're not there, the company can still be alive. It itself is a separate legal entity, and so that's the advantage of company. A company can be scaled in a huge way. Company, uh, I think I lost track of his question again. I think he wanted to know the difference between private limited and LLP, and he wanted to know about
Is there any liability of startup founders to investors in LLP?
liability
Of startup founders to
of,
investors
yeah, okay, to investors.
in LLP?
If you, so, I think he has an LLP and he's asking if there's a liability. Your liability is of course there, but it's limited. It's limited to the contribution on yours from your side. So also, since you are in an LLP, what I would advise you to have a co-founder agreement between you and your other partner. That's very important because in future, if some disputes happen or some disagreements happen, a co-founder agreement is really important. It kind of protects relationships, and it lays down how the business would be run. And I think as far as liability will be there, of course, but it's only limited. But if an investor, let's see how investor has what's the condition is giving the investment on. He's given and if there's something which between you and the investor, if there's a breach of contract, you must have made a contract with the investor, right? So if there's a breach of contract, then we'll see what liability is there. Right now I cannot advise you. It's not a something I can just say generally that whether liability exists or not. It depends on the terms and condition of your contract which you have with the investor.
Okay, I hope Suraj, your question is answered by you. The
And
next
also
question is,
he can also reach me out on this email phone number.
oh,
And I think because it's not a one-on-one question, I think there might be some miscommunication on my part. There's some misunderstanding on my part of the question. So I think it's better if you write in a detailed way on the email. I can come back to it. I promise I'll come back to it in a few days at the
okay.
max.
Sir, there is a question. Can an advocate be a full-time partner in a startup or business?
No, under the Advocates Act, you cannot be a part of a business. If you're an advocate, uh, if let's say if you're a practicing advocate, there's a difference. So if you are working in a corporate law firm, or if you don't have to go to courts, you're working in a private company, then you can. But if you are a practicing advocate, you cannot be a part of a business. Although, let's say your parents have a business and they want to pass it on to you, so you cannot do the daily running of the business. Although you can be there as a sleeping partner. You can consult the Advocates Act here. It will answer your question.
Okay. The next question we have is, does an NDA agreement become void if the company shuts down?
If the company is
Shut down. Like, does an NDA agreement become void if the company shuts down?
That's a good question. I I'm not able to answer it right now in a correct way. I cannot think of the correct answer at this moment, but there's definitely something I haven't thought about. But but I think a non-disclosure agreement, right? So if you, I think I have to come back to that. I'm really sorry. I am not able to answer that question.
Okay. The next question is, if I am outsourcing development engineering, what steps can I take to ensure IP ownership remains mine?
Yeah, he's doing what? He's
If I'm outsourcing development
outsourcing development.
engineering,
Okay. Okay.
if I'm outsourcing development slash engineering, what steps can I take to ensure IP ownership remains mine?
IP ownership will be yours if you have registered it, of course. Just get your registrations and get yourself registered. Especially, I think if you're working internationally, then there's other advices. Other advice I would give you, like if you are outsourcing it to some other country, then you need to get yourself registered there as well. For example, your trademark should be registered there as well, and other than that, if you already own your IP, no one can take that away from you. If you're already registered, you're safe. So you can outsource it, no problem. Just make sure you're registered.
Okay. The next question is, if I launch a global app, do the terms and conditions need to be available in all the languages?
A global app. I'm not certain about this.
So let's take an example of Facebook, probably a global app, I guess.
Hmm.
So when we are
So I think
launching such app,
Hmm.
yes. So
Hmm.
do the terms and conditions need to be available in all the languages?
Hmm. Well, it should be if you are if the person opening the terms of condition is a speaker of a certain language, you should be able to understand it, the terms and conditions when he's operating your app. So let's say if somebody in Russia is using your app, he should be able to read it in Russian language. So I think that's definitely there. But although I must read on it and get a better understanding and probably get back to him. Yeah.
Sure. The next question is it possible to convert LLP to sole proprietorship later? What are the consequences?
So of course, then what you're doing exactly is that you are kind of winding up. You are uh, dissolving your LLP. So once you dissolve that, you LLP is basically between partners, right? So you won't become a sole proprietor; you'll become a general partner. So obviously, you shouldn't. Why would you want to do that? I mean, if you want to do it, then obviously your liabilities will be unlimited, and you can and in future if you get sued or if you get if you want to take a loan, then your personal assets will be at risk. It's a very odd thing to do. I think usually what people do is that they turn their general partnerships into an LLP or a sole proprietorship into a one-person company, not the other way around. Rather odd, but uh, not advisable.
Okay. The next question is what does it really mean when websites are using copyright at the end of their websites? Do
Yeah,
they do you
yeah, go ahead.
do they copyright code or something else?
Yeah. So everything in the website, right? Uh, it, it's uh, if it says it's copyrighted, right? So then they write that so that nobody can just copy paste it and use the same website for their own purposes, and also it's basically to protect the whatever's written on the website. So everything which is written, all the content of the website, the design, the way it's designed, right? So you cannot make a, let's say, a social networking website identical to how Facebook looks. You cannot use the same kind of color combination and the same kind of structure to the website. That's why it's copyrighted, to protect your uh, you know everything which is written there, from blogs, whatever articles you've written, all the contents saying that about a section and stuff like that, everything it's copyrighted.
Does the format of any website is also something which is
Yeah, yeah, that can
able to
also
give?
be, yeah, that also you cannot, the format also cannot be copied. Yeah.
Okay, your question is answered, Mohammed. I make homemade products and sell them to people in my area as a hobby. Can can anyone initiate a legal action against me?
So you are selling some products locally, right? And
Yeah.
let's say if your product is similar to to some big brands, some competitors, if they get to know about it, they they might they might uh, uh, like, let's say you probably, let's say in the case of like small, like a baker, right? A baker, and if he's using a brand name which is similar to a famous bakery, like those famous cakes and all. You get it at, I think you get at Theobroma's. So imagine your packaging is very similar to Theobroma's. You're copying almost the same. You know. So yeah. So if somebody sees that there's some similarity in your product, then you might be liable.
There are a lot of
But
examples for this, like small, like pickle is there, then papads are there. Uh, maybe, yeah, you mentioned itr, though I don't think so. Uh, is that possible for any people to, like any person to sell itr?
to sell.
Like the person is selling,
Also,
homemade product.
obviously, the risk is very less. The risk is very less. It's only once if that person is packaging it in a certain way, and if
Like
within
there's no, there is just a plastic packaging is there without
yeah,
anything.
then nothing. There's no problem there. If it's a plain packaging, it's not really, if you're if you're doing it honestly, I don't think especially in a smaller scale, you can do it. There's no problem as such. And other than that, like only once you like maybe scale a business, these big companies, uh, so their legal teams, right? The big companies, they're in a
Yeah. Yes.
constant lookout. They're constantly looking and researching. They have a team of IP sitting in their law firm, right? And they're constantly looking at what's the new trade. What is our trademark similar to somebody else, and they try to sue them. Like big companies like PayPal in US sued Paytm, because it's very similar, right? Both of them have white and blue
Yes.
color combination. So, when Paytm was small, nobody cared. PayPal didn't care about suing them. But once it became huge, once Paytm became a, multi-million dollar company, then they sued. Nobody wants to sue the smaller businessman exactly because of obvious reasons, because there's no, like, they cannot claim any damages out of that. Other than that, like for instance, if the trademark is similar, or if the legal team finds out that in that certain area somebody is using the doing business from our name or something similar to our name, they will obviously try to take it down, and
So
because
there's
they
a
want to
question in
dominate.
my mind. Yeah. So there's this question in my mind which is coming, like when we see local vendors selling their products, let's say consumable products which are uh, like uh, like achar or papad or anything which are eatables. So
Mm.
they are using this plastic packaging, right? Without mentioning this manufacturing date, expiry date, a proper
Mhm.
MRP, I would say nothing as such.
Mhm.
So does
Mhm.
that also fall under any legal, like legal consequences, or maybe anything which,
Yeah,
any sort
obviously,
of,
like in India, obviously there's a lot of low, very small businessmen, like those like sabzi wala sort of, and those, like somebody selling a char and all. There's no
and
MRP.
masala?
There's
Yeah.
masala. There's no MRP and nothing. So obviously, in legal terms, it's not allowed. Obviously, you need to have those proper licenses. If you're selling any food item, you need to have a FSSI uh, license.
Mm.
But obviously, you need to. The economics of the country is also there, right? And if such things are happening, it's often ignored. I mean, who will file a suit against them, right? From the really small businessmen. So such things are ignored. But obviously, once they scale up and once they become really popular, you'll see a lot of. I remember this tikki, thing Bittu tikki wala or something, right?
Exactly. BTW.
So BTW, right? So when they were small, like who cares, right? They're just a guy named Bittu selling tikkis, right? So nobody cares. People go and eat him. Word of mouth spread. to such an extent that people started going to him from great distances and to have his stickies, right? Then once he became a richer man, right, he's like, now I gotta be careful. Now I gotta do the packaging right, do the branding right. So a lot of like when Bittu Tikkiwala was really small, I don't think he knew any of the legal requirements as well. He was such a small businessman, right? So as he became richer, as he became something,
I would say.
if there's something, as if when he thought that he could become a target to some
Yeah.
sort of legal liability, then he turned his thing into proper packaging and with proper
Obviously, sir, there are
expiry
so
date.
many chart brands. I would to name
Yeah,
a few, like Bikaner is there,
yeah. So
Haldiram is there.
imagine in their time of
Yeah.
inception, they must be like really small, business people, right? Running
Yes.
just by word of mouth, without even a logo, just word of mouth that this guy is Mr. Bikaner and he makes really good snacks, you know, just on the basis of trust. And as you grow, as you become bigger, then you come into the limelight, and then you might be sued. So, those are the times you tend to, get your copyright registration, sorry, your trademark registration right, your everything, logo, trademark, everything, maybe your slogans and whatnot.
So with this, due to time constraints, sir, we'll be closing our webinar here.
Yes,
And
and I would just like to add that for those
sure, sir.
people who attended this webinar, really grateful to them that they took out their time and attended it, and our relationship doesn't end here. You can reach out to me, and I'm sorry that I was not able to answer a lot of your questions in the best way I could have. So reach out to me personally, and I'll make sure, I promise you that I will answer everybody who's there in the seminar. I'll make sure their doubts are cleared, no, and within the next coming few days. So make sure you reach out to me through WhatsApp. You can even call me, but try WhatsApping or email. That would be better, and I'll definitely reach back to you. And on to you, Chandra.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insights and being so, I would say, a helping hand to all those people who are, thinking of a lot of things.
Yeah,
I know that a startup requires a lot of things, starting from funding to organizing, management to legalities also. So, and keeping in mind the current situation of this lockdown and pandemic, so a great initiative by you, sir, that you are going to be present for all the participants who attended today's webinar. And I do request all the participants that we have provided you the contact details of sir, so you can write down a complete full-fledged email or WhatsApp him before calling, or you can ask him for his availability. And any other closing word from your side, sir?
no, thank you for the opportunity, Chandrika. Aarti, thank you
Thank you.
for helping out. Really, you guys are really prompt with your responses. Thank you for lawyer team for organizing this. It's really good that we are spreading knowledge to young entrepreneurs and businessmen, and making sure that they know their legal aspects of running the business well, right? So thank you to the whole team. Thank you for
Thank
everything.
Thank you, sir. I think it was an extremely insightful session and I think those questions really proved how interested people were. I
Yeah.
thank Lloyd for this opportunity, and yeah, I hope everyone has a great evening.
So thank you so
Oh,
much, sir. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
bye.